The 17-year-old, who's a former head girl and the daughter of an officer of the West Mercia Force, was last seen at 7:30 on Sunday evening, leaving her family home here in Wellington. Her parents thought she was going to spend the night with friends.
In 2008, a 17-year-old girl walked into a police station in Shropshire, England, and reported that a boy she knew had lured her to his house, grabbed her by the throat, and tried to strangle her. She had bruises on her neck. She had bite marks on her arms from fighting him off. She had done everything right. She reported it immediately. She gave them his name. She told them exactly what he had done. And the professionals who assessed him afterward wrote in their official report that he posed a significant risk to others. That was the language they used. Significant risk to others. So what did police do with that information? They gave him a caution, closed the case, wrote it off as, and this is their actual recorded language, suitably resolved. They did not warn a single one of the girls whose photographs they found at his house. They did not flag him to any agency. They did not follow up. They let him walk. And 5 years later, a 17-year-old girl named Georgia Williams walked through his door and never walked back out. This is not a story about a monster who appeared from nowhere. This is a story about a system that saw exactly what was coming and looked the other way. It is a story about a young woman whose death was not inevitable, whose life could have been saved by a single phone call, a single file check, a single person doing their job properly. And it is a story that every one of us should know, because the failures that allowed this to happen did not disappear when the courtroom doors closed. Before we go anywhere near what happened on the night of May 26, 2013, you need to know who Georgia Williams actually was, because she was not just a victim, she was a person. And if you are going to understand the true weight of this case, you need to know her first. Georgia was born just after midnight on September 7, 1995, in Wellington, Shropshire, a small, tight-knit English town where everybody knows everybody and news travels fast. Her dad, Steve Williams, was a police detective. Her mom was Lynette. She had an older sister named Scarlett, and from the very first moment, Georgia was not waiting for anyone. Steve described the night Georgia was born as one of the proudest of his life. He already had one daughter, Scarlett, and people kept telling him he must be hoping for a boy. He was not. He wanted another girl. When Georgia arrived, he said she made their family complete. A few weeks after her birth, Steve passed out as a fully qualified police officer. There is a photograph from that ceremony. Steve in uniform, beaming, with baby Georgia in his arms. He said he looked at that photograph for years afterward. He had imagined Georgia being there the day he retired too. She never got to be. Growing up, Georgia and Scarlett were chalk and cheese. Scarlett did ballet. Georgia wanted mud and open air and anything that got her heart racing. Her colleagues at the local petrol station where she later worked gave her a nickname, Ferret, because she was quick, scrappy, always moving, always into something. She was the little sister who hid behind doors and jumped out at Scarlett, who would quietly slip her hand into yours on the sofa without saying a word. Her dad talked about that. Said Georgia had this way of just appearing beside you and holding your hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. That was Georgia. But it was not always easy. When she was younger, she was bullied badly, relentlessly. Her mom Lynette offered to call the school to get her moved away from whoever was making her life miserable. Georgia said no. She was 10 years old and she said she was not giving in. She was staying and seeing it out, and she did. But something important came out of those years. Georgia came out the other side with a bone-deep understanding of what it felt like to be the outsider, to be the one nobody talks to be invisible in a room full of people. She never forgot that feeling. And she made a quiet decision that she would never be the person who made someone else feel that way. That decision would eventually cost her everything. By the time high school came around, everything had changed. Georgia was popular, trusted, elected head girl of her college, the British equivalent of class president. She was on the student council. She volunteered as part of the matchday safety team at AFC Telford United. She joined the Air Training Corps and earned the rank of corporal. She was studying A-levels in biology, sport, and psychology with a clear plan to become an RAF paramedic, frontline, helping people in the most extreme circumstances imaginable. That was exactly the kind of role Georgia wanted. She even wrote a bucket list at 15, everything she wanted to do and see and experience. She never got to finish it. When she turned 17, Georgia took a part-time job at a local petrol station to start saving for her future. She made friends with almost every person there within days. That was just who she was. Walk into a room, and within 20 minutes, everyone in it felt like they had known her for years. But there was one person at that petrol station who was not part of the group, quieter than the rest, a little on the outside of things, a little lonely, and Georgia noticed, because of course she did. She knew exactly what that felt like, and she was not going to let it continue. His name was Jamie Reynolds. He was 22 years old. And the moment Georgia Williams decided to include him, to make him feel like he belonged, she had no idea what she was walking toward. To understand what happened to Georgia, you need to understand who Jamie Reynolds appeared to be. Because on the surface, there was nothing obviously alarming. Nothing that would have made you cross the street. He had actually been in the same school year as Scarlett. The Williams family already knew him from the petrol station as a customer. Steve and Lynette described him as quiet, polite, just a normal young lad. That is what made him so dangerous. When Georgia started bringing Reynolds into her wider friend group, inviting him out, making sure he was included, he became more confident, more comfortable. And somewhere in that process, he developed feelings for her. He made them clear. He asked her out more than once. Georgia turned him down every time, gently, carefully, the way she did everything. She had a boyfriend. She valued their friendship. She told him clearly that romance was never going to happen, that she wanted them to stay friends. He said he understood. Privately, he was not handling it. When Georgia started dating her boyfriend Matt, Reynolds posted on Facebook about being cursed, about watching someone you care about be happy with someone else. He wrote that he was forever alone, but to Georgia's face, perfectly friendly. Not even a hint of it. Then one day at work, Reynolds tells Georgia he is miserable, does not know what to do with his life. And Georgia, because this is exactly who Georgia is, sits down with him and asks what he actually loves. Photography, he says. Then do it, she says. Build a portfolio. Make it happen. And when he asks if she would be willing to model for some shots to help him get started, she does not even hesitate. Of course she will. He is her friend. That is what you do for friends. So they make a plan. Sunday, May 26, 2013. Georgia and a group of friends will come to Reynolds' parents' house for a photo shoot. His parents are away in Italy. His sister is staying elsewhere. He has the house to himself. What Georgia does not know is that Reynolds had contacted multiple other people about this shoot. Several of them agree to come, but later in the week. On the night of the 26th, only one person has been invited, her. The day before, Reynolds sends Georgia a message about the photos. He writes that he has an idea involving a fake hanging setup, just wants to check she is comfortable with it, says it is completely safe. Artistic. She would look like she was floating in midair. Georgia says yes. She had absolutely no reason not to. He was her friend. Now it is Sunday, May 26, 2013. Steve Williams comes home from work in the afternoon and the sun is out properly. The kind of afternoon that makes you want to be outside. So they decide to have a barbecue. The whole family is there. Grandparents, aunts, uncles. A full house, full garden, the smell of food and people laughing. One of those days that just feels easy. Georgia is there too, happy present. But she has somewhere to be. Lynette pulls her aside at some point and says, why not just give it a miss tonight? Stay with us. It is a beautiful evening. Reynolds will understand. Georgia thinks about it. She genuinely does. But Reynolds only lives 5 minutes away. Literally a 5-minute walk. She figures she will go over, get the photos done quickly, and be back before anyone misses her. She does not want to let him down, so she goes upstairs to get ready. Pulls her long red hair into a ponytail, black skinny jeans, a baggy top, flat shoes, a black leather jacket. She comes back downstairs, and her dad looks at her and grins. Tells her she looks like Olivia Newton-John in Grease. She smiles, says goodbye, and walks out the door. It is 7:30 in the evening. Nobody in that house knows they have just said their last goodbye to her. Georgia makes the short walk to Reynolds' house on Ennerdale Road. She knocks. He answers. She steps inside. Her friends are not there. No one else has arrived. It is just Reynolds. But he is her friend. She trusts him, so she does not leave. He hands her an outfit he has picked out, a jacket and a pair of shorts. She changes. And at around 8 p.m. in the upstairs hallway of his parents' house, the photos begin. What police eventually recovered from Reynolds' camera told a story that unfolded in stages. The first photographs look exactly like what Georgia was told this would be. She is dressed in the outfit, looking into the camera, comfortable. Then the images shift. Georgia is standing on a wooden box in the hallway, a noose around her neck. She is still smiling, because Reynolds had told her the box would be edited out later. It would look incredible, he said. She believed him. She stood on that box and smiled at his camera because why would she not? He was her friend. He then tied her hands behind her back and kicked the box away. Georgia understood immediately what was happening. In those final moments, the person she had gone out of her way to include, to befriend, to help, had lured her here with a plan. That understanding is something Georgia's family has had to live with every single day since. What Reynolds did in the hours that followed, we are going to handle with the respect Georgia deserves. What investigators and prosecutors established is that Reynolds spent several hours treating Georgia with complete contempt. He moved through different rooms of the house. He took hundreds of photographs. He removed her jewelry and kept it as trophies. Senior detectives who reviewed the full contents of his camera, officers with years of experience handling the worst cases imaginable, were visibly shaken. Let that land for a moment. At 10:30 p.m., Georgia's mom Lynette sends a text, just a normal mom text. "Where are you? When are you coming home?" Reynolds picks up Georgia's phone and types back a reply. Casual, breezy. Says the shoot finished a while ago, that Georgia is out with friends, that she will be home late. Don't wait up. And at the end of the message, 3 kisses, just like Georgia always signed off. He knew to do that because he had written himself a reminder note in advance. He had also looked up Georgia's passcode beforehand so he could access her phone the moment he needed it. This was not a sudden loss of control. This was planned, every detail of it. He then contacts 2 other girls to cancel plans he had made with them for the following day, ties up loose ends. Cool, calm, completely in control. Meanwhile, on the other side of Wellington, Georgia's family goes to bed believing she is out with friends. Happy. Safe. Monday morning, 6:00 a.m. Lynette goes to check on Georgia. The bed has not been slept in. She tells herself not to panic. Georgia texted last night. She is fine. Probably stayed at a friend's place. So Lynette texts again. She is fine. She is not fine. And that message is not from her. Monday passes. Georgia had plans to go to a music festival. So when she does not come home, her parents tell themselves she went straight there from her friend's place. That makes sense. That sounds like something Georgia would do. But then Monday night comes and she is still not home. Tuesday morning arrives, and this is when the alarm bells really start ringing. Because Tuesday is Georgia's first ever driving lesson. She has been counting down to this for weeks. She is 17 and she is finally learning to drive. And there is absolutely no version of Georgia Williams that misses this lesson. Yet she does not show up. Her parents start calling everyone, every friend they have a number for, every person Georgia knows. Nobody has seen her. Nobody has heard from her. Not in days. Her phone is going straight to voicemail. Her boyfriend Matt posts a desperate appeal on Facebook, begging anyone with information to come forward. Word spreads fast through Wellington. Something is very wrong. Georgia's parents go straight to the police. And then comes Wednesday morning at 5:30 a.m. Steve and Lynette are woken by a knock at the door. Steve gets up and opens it. Standing there are 2 senior police officers. Steve Williams has been a detective for over 20 years. He knows exactly what it means when officers of that rank turn up at your door before sunrise. He said later that he turned to Lynette and just kept saying it over and over. He has killed her. He has killed her, hasn't he? Lynette was screaming at him to stop saying it, but Steve already knew. He ran upstairs and was physically sick. Now, here is the part of this story that should make every single one of us sit up. Because while Georgia's family was falling apart at their front door at 5:30 in the morning, investigators were already piecing together exactly who Jamie Reynolds was. And what they found was not a surprise. It was a pattern, a long documented ignored pattern. Let's go back to 2008. Reynolds is 17 years old. He lures a 16-year-old girl to his house under the pretense of helping him with a media project. Sound familiar? When she gets uncomfortable and tries to stay near the door instead of going upstairs, he grabs her by the throat and attempts to strangle her. She fights back, bites him, breaks free, runs straight to the police. Officers investigate, and what they find at Reynolds' house is deeply disturbing. Photographs of girls that he had altered by drawing nooses around their necks, including a photograph of the girl he had just attacked. A mental health assessment is carried out. The professionals who conducted it are not ambiguous. Their conclusion is written in plain language. Jamie Reynolds poses a significant risk to others. He had gone from consuming violent material online to physically acting on it. They saw exactly what he was. So what happened next? Police gave him a caution, closed the case, filed it away under the language suitably resolved. Not one of the girls whose photographs were found at his house was contacted. Not one of them was warned. They had no idea their images were in his possession, no idea what he had drawn on them, no idea what he was capable of. Let that sink in properly. Then 2011, a female colleague rejects his romantic advances. Reynolds deliberately reverses his car at speed directly into hers. Police are called. They investigate, but nobody runs a background check. Nobody makes the connection to 2008. It gets logged as a traffic matter and quietly disappears. And then February 2013, 3 months before he kills Georgia. This is the one that is hardest to sit with because it follows the exact same playbook. Reynolds lures a teenage girl to his house while his parents are away. The moment she is inside, he locks every door, every single one. She is trapped inside a house with a man who has already attempted to strangle someone and has thousands of deeply disturbing images on his computer. He tries to convince her to stay the night. She says no. He keeps pushing. The atmosphere shifts. She gets more scared. And then she tells him flat out that if he does not open those doors right now, she is throwing herself through the window. Think about how terrified she must have been to say that. Reynolds pauses, then calmly tells her he cannot find the keys. He has misplaced them. He makes a show of searching. Then he finds them, opens the door, and she runs. She had no idea how close she had just come to never leaving that house. He had already prepared the loft, written himself reminder notes. He had a plan for her. The same plan he later carried out on Georgia. She got lucky. Georgia did not. This incident was never reported to police. But here is what investigators find when they search Reynolds' house and computer after Georgia goes missing. Over 16,000 images, dozens of videos, extreme violent material depicting harm to women, and 40 handwritten stories describing assault and murder. Most of the victims in those stories are women Reynolds actually knew in real life, and one of those stories is titled Georgia Williams. He started writing it in January 2013. He finished it 3 weeks before he killed her. It describes in explicit detail exactly what he planned to do. This was not a fantasy. It was a blueprint, a step-by-step plan written in his own hand months before Georgia ever walked through his door. Not one person in any of the agencies that had contact with Reynolds had ever connected those dots. Not one. Meanwhile, police track Reynolds' movements. CCV places him at a budget hotel in Glasgow, Scotland. 280 miles from Wellington, he is arrested and asked one question: where is Georgia Williams? His answer is, I don't know. He is brought back to Shropshire, and while he sits there saying nothing, investigators retrace every step he took after killing Georgia. Monday morning, the day after Georgia went to his house, Reynolds is caught on CCTV at a local petrol station filling up his stepfather's silver Toyota van. Georgia's body is in the back of that van. He then drives 60 miles to Wrexham, North Wales, parks up, leaves Georgia in the van, and walks into a cinema. The film he watches is Fast and the Furious, the exact film he had asked Georgia to see with him weeks earlier. The one she politely turned down because she had a boyfriend. He never got that date when she was alive, so he took her body to the car park and went without her. Police put out a public appeal asking if anyone had seen the silver van, and remarkably, it works. Several people come forward to say they saw Reynolds on a mountain pass near Wrexham. His van had gotten stuck in the mud. They had stopped to help him. One person had even taken a photograph. Police head straight to that area, the woodland around the Nanty Garth Pass. And on May 31st, 5 days after Georgia walked out of her front door in her leather jacket and her ponytail, they find her, barely concealed among the trees, left there like she was nothing. Steve Williams goes to identify his daughter. He sees the state she is in after 5 days exposed to the wind and the rain, and he makes a decision right there. Nobody else is seeing her like this. Not Scarlett. Not the grandparents, nobody. Scarlett is waiting outside. She wants to go in. She needs to say goodbye to her little sister. Steve physically stops her, holds her back, and tells her to remember Georgia the way she was. Remember her laughing. Remember her hiding behind doors and jumping out at you. Remember the girl who slipped her hand into yours on the sofa without saying a word. Remember that Georgia, not this one. Steve walks back out alone and carries that image for the rest of his life so that nobody else in his family has to. Reynolds maintains his innocence for months. In October 2013, he appears in court and enters a not guilty plea. Georgia's family has to sit in that courtroom and look at the man who killed their daughter while he forces them to prepare for a full trial, forces them to relive every detail in open court. Then December 2nd, 2013, the first day of trial. Steve Williams arrives at its Stafford Crown Court and catches a glimpse of Reynolds through a crack in the door before proceedings begin. He is laughing, joking with court staff, relaxed like he is at a social event. Then the doors open, Reynolds walks in and something shifts. The laughing stops, the shoulders drop. He becomes almost childlike, quiet, head down, a completely different person. He stands up and pleads guilty. After 6 months of lying, after 6 months of putting George's family through absolute hell, he folds on the first day of trial. George's family did not even receive a proper warning that this was coming. Sentencing takes place on December 19, 2013. 2 forensic psychiatrists have assessed Reynolds. Their conclusions are stark. He is intelligent, calculating, capable of adapting his tactics, and in their professional opinion, he had the potential to become a serial killer. He would, they said, pose a grave risk to women for the rest of his life. No therapy, no rehabilitation, nothing would change what he was. The judge considers everything. Reynolds' age, his guilty plea which came 5 days before the trial was due to begin, so it carries very limited weight. Every mitigating factor on the table. None of it comes close to outweighing what he did. The judge hands down a whole life order, no minimum term, no possibility of parole, no chance of release, ever. At 23 years old, Reynolds becomes the youngest offender in British criminal history to receive that sentence. The judge's words to him are precise. He said that killing Georgia was the expression of a long-standing preoccupation with violent and sadistic material, and that watching her die in circumstances where he could have saved her life was the central part of his pleasure. In 2014, Reynolds had the audacity to appeal. His legal team argues the whole life order is excessive given his age and his guilty plea. The Court of Appeal does not entertain it for a moment. The ruling is immediate and absolute. There is no basis whatsoever on which the sentence could be argued against. Reynolds watched the hearing via video link from his prison cell. He did not say a word. Outside the original courtroom, Steve Williams had faced the cameras and said something quietly devastating. He said there is no sentence we can ever say we are satisfied with. It will never bring Georgia back. She is dead, she is gone physically. She lives in our hearts. The one thing that will always cause us grief is that even though Reynolds is serving a whole life sentence, he still has life to hang on to. But justice for Georgia Williams did not stop at that courtroom, because once Reynolds was behind bars, her family turned their attention to a question that had been burning since the very beginning. How did this actually happen? An independent review is carried out by Devon and Cornwall police, brought in specifically because West Mercia could not investigate itself. And what they find is damning. At least 8 separate agencies had contact with Jamie Reynolds after the 2008 attack. 8. Police, mental health services, children's services, youth offending teams, all of them circling the same dangerous man. And not one of them was properly communicating with the others. The review concludes that a confused and uncoordinated approach meant that critical information never landed where it needed to. Each agency assumed someone else was handling it. Nobody was handling it. And Reynolds kept escalating while the system looked the other way. 6 West Mercia police officers are served with misconduct notices over their handling of the 2008 and 2011 incidents. Steve Williams, a man who gave over 20 years of his life to that same force, describes those notices as the equivalent of naughty school children being told off by a head teacher, a slap on the wrist for missing every warning sign that led to his daughter's death. He then resigns from the police shortly afterward, says he has lost all confidence in the institution he dedicated his career to, that he cannot continue serving alongside the people who failed Georgia. The chief constable of West Mercia issues a public apology to the Williams family. He says, plainly, we got it wrong. We let them down. And perhaps the most haunting voice in all of this belongs to Jadine Dunning, a close friend of Scarlett, who had known Reynolds for years. When the review is published, it emerges that Reynolds had also altered a photograph of Jadine, added a noose around her neck. Police had known about that image since 2008. They never told her, not once in 5 years. When Jadine finds out, she says something that collapses the entire institutional failure into 4 words. If I had known, she says, I would have warned Georgia to stay away from him. 4 words. Could have been prevented. She later speaks openly about it, says that nobody can know the answer to the what-ifs. And that is exactly why the what-ifs become so hard to live with. Steve and Lynette Williams read the full review together. Steve said afterward that having lost Georgia to pure evil, they cried when they read it, because it was so obvious that Reynolds was, if not one already, a murderer in the making. Georgia's death could have been prevented. He is right, and that is the part of this story that never gets easier to sit with. Lynette spoke openly about what life looks like after losing Georgia. She said that one of them will wake the other in the night screaming, that they help each other through it, that she relives the day as soon as she wakes up or when she tries to sleep, that it is on her mind constantly, that it never goes away. That is what Reynolds left behind, not just a family without a daughter, a family that cannot sleep, a father who had to leave the career he loved, a sister held back from saying a proper goodbye, a mother who wakes up screaming in the dark, and yet somehow they found a way to keep going, not for Reynolds, not for the system that failed them, for Georgia. In June 2013, just weeks after losing their daughter, Steve and Lynette set up the Georgia Williams Trust, a charity dedicated to giving young people access to outdoor adventures, music, and life-building experiences. The kind of things Georgia lived for. The kind of things she had written on that bucket list at 15. A list she never got to finish. The motto is 3 words that sound exactly like her. Free her spirit. The local community in Wellington rallied around the family. Over £2,000 raised for a memorial bench where the people who loved her can go and sit and talk to her and remember. Lynette later wrote a memoir about her daughter called Our Georgia, published 10 years after her death. A mother sitting down and saying the world needs to know who she really was. And Georgia's bucket list, written by a 15-year-old girl with her whole future in front of her, is still being worked through item by item by the people who loved her most. Every time one of those items gets ticked off, it is Georgia's people saying they have not forgotten, that they are still here. And so is she. Scarlett said of her sister she would do anything for anyone. I am going to do everything for her from now on. She is my little sister, but beyond that, she will always be my best friend too. Georgia Williams wanted to be an ARIF paramedic. She wanted to save lives on the front line. She wanted every person in every room she walked into to feel seen and included and welcome. She spent her last evening trying to help someone who did not deserve a single moment of her kindness. Her name was Georgia. She was 17 years old, and she deserved so much more.